In this lesson, we are going to learn how to identify and write intervals. Now, an interval is basically just the distance between two notes, and we learn them to kind of help us by, playing and analyzing music by ear. So we're going to have a look at how to identify them first. So we'll start off in the key of C major for the examples, and then we'll kind of move on from there. But the first thing I'm going to do is actually write a C major scale. So I'll write that on my screen right now. Just give me a second. Okay, so we've got an interval, and basically every interval in a major key is going to be either major or perfect. So I'll give you an example right now. This interval that I've just written is a major third, okay? Why? Because both of the notes appear in the major key and they're a third apart. So if we were to count, the lines and spaces, we count this ledger line as 1, then we count the kind of space between the two notes as 2, and then the note as third. So that's why it's a major third. Some people start to count it from the first note and they call it a major second or something like that. But you want to make sure you don't do that and make sure you get it right. So for example, let's do another one. Okay, so these two notes are, the distance, the two notes are C and a G. So if we count the distance, let's have a go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, this is a fifth, and it's what we call a perfect fifth. Now, there are 3 intervals, or 4 if you include the octave, that are perfect, and the rest are major. So looking at the board, we have a perfect unison, perfect fourth, a perfect fifth. My line's been a bit funny there. Perfect fifth, and a perfect octave. Okay. So the reason why they're called perfect is because they appear in both major and minor keys. We'll get to that in a second. We'll just have a look at another interval before we finish. So the one that we had just before, this one that is here, that was a perfect fifth. Okay, and the one we had before was a major third. What we'll do now is look at major intervals in another key. So what I'll do now is I'll draw out an F major scale and we'll work out intervals from that scale. Okay, here we have an F major scale. So if I was to draw a few intervals in to look at, we'll just do that now. All right, so this interval here is a major seventh. So we'll count them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So as you can see, there's a distance between the two. It's a major seventh, and the reason why it's a major seventh and not a minor seventh is both of the notes exist in the major key. Let's have a look at another interval. This interval here is a perfect fourth. And I'll just write the major seventh in from last time. Now this here is a perfect fourth, okay? And because it's, in both the F major and the F minor key, it's exactly the same. So it is a perfect fourth, and that's why we call them perfect. And the reason why we got the B flat in there is because the B flat is part of the key signature. Okay, now we're just going to take a look at a few intervals. They all start from F and work out their distance and work out whether they're major or minor. So let's take a look at the first one, which is this one here. Okay, now let's have a look at the bottom note. So it's F, that's our starting note. And the note on top of it is an A flat. Now, if we look at the F major scale above the notes here, you'll notice that there is no A flat in the there's no A flat in the F major scale. So this means that this must be a minor interval, because if it doesn't appear in the major scale, it must be minor, okay? So this is actually a minor third. Now, moving on to the next one, it's F to an A natural, or A with no sharp or flat next to it. Now, this does appear in the major scale. So, got the F is the starting note. My bad. I meant to use the laser. F as the starting note, and then A is the third note of the scale. That A appears in the major scale, and therefore it is a major interval. So that interval there is a major third. Now, the next one, we have a look at it. So it's going from an F to a D flat. Now, if we look at the scale above, there's an F here, and there's only a D natural, not a D flat. So this is the major scale we're talking about. So that means this must be a minor interval. And if we're counting the distance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it must be a minor sixth. And looking at the last one, okay, the bottom note's F because they're all in F. But if we look at the second note, okay, we've actually got a G flat, okay? Now, in the F major scale, there's only a G natural. So if it's not in the major scale, it must be a minor interval, which means that this is a minor second. So I'll write it in the right pen. Minor second. Okay. So basically, that's how you identify intervals. You look at the major key, I guess. So you look at the bottom note, work out what that note is, and work out what the major key built from that note is, or the major scale built from that note is, okay? Then you look at the note above and work out the distance, so how many lines and spaces it is away from that note. And then you look at whether that note has an accidental next to it or not, and then whether that note actually belongs to the major scale. If it doesn't belong to the major scale, it must be a minor interval. So hopefully you understand identifying intervals a little better, and this will help you with your work.